Welcome back to my channel, Famous and Fabulous. Doris Day's grandson won't be a household name. However, his connection to the mythical actress has always sparked curiosity. Now at 41, he is ultimately beginning up approximately something. Fanatics have long suspected, from his non-public life, Doris, courting along with his iconic grandmother. His revelation is dropping new light on an aspect of Doris Day that few ever knew. Let's take a more in-depth look at what he has to mention and why. It's leaving all and sundry speaking. Doris Mary Ann Koff turned into born on April 3rd, 192, 22 in Cincinnati, Ohio. Her dad and mum, Frederick Wilhelm von Hoff, a tune instructor and choir grasp, and Alma Sophia Weltz, a homemaker, were of German descent. Doris changed into the youngest of three kids. Her brother Richard died before she became born, and her brother Paul turned into some years older, developing up in a modest household. During the Great Depression, Doris faced challenges early on. Her dad and mom marriage was strained main, to their eventual divorce, an extraordinary occurrence at the time, which deeply affected younger Doris. No matter these hardships, she located solace in song and dance passions that might shape her destiny. On the age of 12, Doris won a dance contest by status on her fingers for greater than 3 hours. Incomes her loose dance lessons. This victory showcased her determination and resilience. But at 14, a tragic automobile coincidence shattered her leg, derailing her desires of becoming an expert dancer. Medical doctors considered amputation, but after more than one surgeries, she became restrained to mattress for over a while. All through this period of immobility, Doris became to making a song, finding inspiration in the melodies of Ella Fitzgerald, spotting her daughter's vocal talent. Elma enrolled Doris in making a song instructions with Grace. Grace quickly observed Doris's high-quality gift, setting the degree for her future in track. By means of 15, Doris started acting professionally, earning $5 in step with night at a nearby Chinese restaurant. One night, at the same time as making a song at a community nightclub, she caught the eye of band chief Barney Rapp, impressed by way of her voice. Rapp desired her as his woman vocalist, but because of her age, Doris needed to be 18 to perform in venues, serving a testimony to her determination to capture possibilities. In 1939, at 17, Doris followed the stage call. Doris Day at Rapp's notion, inspired by means of her rendition of the music Day After Day. First of all hesitant, she grew accustomed to the name, which might quickly turn out to be synonymous with Hollywood stardom. On March 15, 1940, at just 18, Doris Day joined Les Brown's band, marking a significant turning factor in her profession. Overcoming initial level fright, she inspired the band chief with her rendition of Embraceable You, securing her role because the lead vocalist. Her time with the band turned into marked by means of both triumphs and private tragedies. In 1941, whilst traveling with the band, Doris obtained the devastating information of her brother Paul's dying in an twist of fate. Regardless of her grief, she selected to carry out that night, turning in a heartfelt performance that moved the target market to tears. This resilience became a hallmark of her career. In 1945, Doris performed her first important hit with Sentimental Journey, a music that resonated deeply with soldiers returning home from World War II. Interestingly, she recorded the song even as struggling with a cold, which lent her voice a distinctive husky quality. The tune sold over 1 million copies in its first year, cementing her popularity as a rising megastar. In 1947, Doris embarked on a solo profession, signing a 7 to 12 months $1 million contract with Columbia Records, an exceptional deal for a girl artist on the time. First of all, she confronted demanding situations with the songs decided on for her, finding them dull and old. After advocating for more cutting-edge material, she recorded It's Magic, which have become a large hit, selling over 2 million copies and incomes. An Oscar nomination. Remarkably, she recorded the track in an unmarried take, leaving the studio target market in awe. Her fulfillment in music opened doors to Hollywood. In 1948, songwriters Jules Stein and Sammy Cahn recommended her for the film Romance. on the high seas in spite of having no earlier appearing revel in Doris auditioned, and became cast in the lead function with the aid of director Michael Curtis, who praised her as the most ideal girl. I've Ever Visible, the movie's success marked the start of her illustrious film profession all through the 50s. Doris starred in a series of success musicals, which include Calamity Jane 1953 and The Pajama Sport 1957 in Calamity Jane. She portrayed a daring frontiers lady acting her personal stunts, and even breaking a rib at some stage in filming the film, turned into a container office hit grossing over $37 million. The pajama recreation similarly showcased her versatility, contributing to its $5 million earnings and solidifying her repute as a leading woman in Hollywood. Doris Day might also have been America's sweetheart, but he, jealous, possessive, and violently abusive. The primary time he hit her turned into the day after their wedding. From then on, the violence escalated. Jordan accused Doris of infidelity at every turn, and his rage became uncontrollable whilst pregnant with their simplest toddler. Terry Doris suffered one of Jordan's maximum brutal attacks. He had desired her to have an abortion, and while she refused, he beat her so seriously that she almost miscarried in her 8th month of pregnancy. He drove her to an isolated area with a gun, threatening to kill each of them. Doris, with quick thinking and sheer survival instincts, controlled to get away. The enjoy left her scarred for life, and even though she gave delivery to a healthful toddler boy in February 1942, she knew she could not live inside the marriage. She filed for divorce and in no way appeared back, but the wounds Jordan inflicted on her lasted. Doris might later admit that from that day forward, she may want to by no means sit down comfortably within the front seat of her automobile without being reminded of that terrifying night. Her two marriage to musician George Widler regarded like a clean start, that they had met his bandmates, and he seemed to provide the companionship she longed for, but rapidly. Once they wed in 1946, Widler grew cold and distant. The final blow got here while he admitted he couldn't handle being married to a person whose fame overshadowed his personal. After just 8 months, their marriage ended. Doris was devastated. Then came Martin, Allure, the guy who could trade her lifestyles in methods. She should have never imagined he regarded devoted, adopting her son Terry and taking over as her manager for almost a long time. She placed all her agree within him, blind to the deception taking place backstage. What Doris did not recognize changed into that Mila and his business associate Jerome Rosenthal have been secretly mismanaging her price range, funneling her profits into failed investments and fraudulent commercial enterprise ventures without her know-how. Her whole fortune, really worth what would be over $150 million, these days changed into disappearing. However, the betrayal did not forestall there while Malheur suddenly died in 1968. Doris discovered the full extent of the deception. She discovered that not simplest was she penniless, however, Muir had also secretly signed her up for a television display. The Doris Day display, without her consent. She had no choice, however, to follow through with the dedication, because it turned into the simplest manner to pay off the staggering debts left in his way. She fought a protracted legal struggle in opposition to Rosenthal and turned into offered $22 million in damages. In 1974, however, due to insurance negotiations, she obtained only a fraction of that quantity. However, the emotional harm became irreparable. Doris, a woman who had once been on the pinnacle of Hollywood fulfillment, have been left damaged and betrayed by way of the man she depended on most, as Doris Day's Hollywood profession waned. Some other ardor took center stage: animal welfare. She had usually been an animal lover. However, it became an annoying enjoy from her childhood that fueled her determination as a younger woman. She had a canine named Tiny, who changed into tragically hit by way of a car. Doris turned into devastated. The helplessness she felt in that moment stayed along with her. And as she grew older, she vowed to devote her existence to shielding animals. Even throughout the Hollywood years, Doris refused to turn a blind eye to animals struggling, even as filming The Man Who Knew Too Much in Morocco. She was appalled with the aid of the mistreatment of animals on set. She refused to keep operating Until something was performed, her demands had been met, and the animals have been properly cared for, demonstrating now not most effective her influence but also her unwavering ethical compass. Her passion culminated within the founding of the Doris Day Puppy Basis. In 1978, what started out as a small attempt to help neighborhood rescues speedy expanded into a larger movement. The inspiration became later, renamed the Doris Day Animal Foundation DDAF, and focused on broader issues, including spaying and neutering packages, to prevent puppy overpopulation. In 1995. She launched World Spay Day, a campaign that raised awareness approximately the significance of spaying and neutering pets. It became a global motion, achieving over 70 international locations and improving the lives of thousands and thousands of animals at her home in Carmel Valley, California. Doris created a sanctuary for animals in need. She individually rescued endless puppies and gave them a secure area to stay. It became not unusual for her to have 30 puppies at a time, every dealt with the love and care they deserved. Doris can also have stepped away from Hollywood, but her have an effect on in the international of animal welfare only grew more potent. She lobbied for legislative modifications, spoke out against animal cruelty, and used her celebrity status to bring interest to the reason she cared about maximum even in her later handiest grandson, Ryan Melcher, who had grown up idolizing his grandmother from afar, discovered himself completely close out of her life for over 14 years. The heartbreaking fact changed into found out in 2019. Whilst Doris passed away, Ryan, like the relaxation of the world, discovered approximately her loss of life. Through Facebook for Ryan, this painful revelation showed what he had long suspected: a person had been keeping him far from his grandmother. The hassle started out after the dying of Doris's simplest infant, Terry Mealer, in 2004. Terry, our respected song producer, had constantly been a consistent presence in his mum's life. Even though their dating had its ups and downs, they had been deeply connected. His passing left a void, and without Terry, a bridge between them. Ryan's courting with Doris started out to fracture rapidly after Terry's demise. Doris invited Ryan to dinner, apparently extending an olive department in hopes of reconnecting. It changed into a moment Ryan had been anticipating. Considering the fact that his mother and father divorced in 1997, his bond with Doris had turned out to be strained. This dinner invitation was a danger to rebuild what had been misplaced. However, before Ryan ought to even see his grandmother, a man named Bob Bashara stepped in. Bashara, Doris's business supervisor, summoned Ryan to a personal meeting on the Cypress Inn, a boutique resort in Carmel that Doris co-owned. There, Ryan became met with a cold and calculated question: "Why do you need to see Doris?" Greatly surprised and confused, Ryan later recalled, "Because she's my grandmother." But the response he received became devastating. Bashara, knowledgeable him, that he would no longer be allowed to look her. The blame, he said, lay with Ryan's mother and father, and past circle of relatives. Conflicts. The meeting ended, and so did Ryan's get admission. Toto, his grandmother, through the year strives to reconnect, have been met with silence. Bashara had reportedly tightened his control over Doris's existence, putting in safety gates around her home and prescribing get admission to her. The once welcoming superstar, who had spent many years beginning her coronary heart to fanatics and animals, alike became now complete remoted. Via the time Doris exceeded away in 2019 on the age of 97. Ryan had come to terms with the truth that he might never get to mention goodbye, but the pain of their lost years weighed closely on him within the days following her dying. Ryan broke his silence in a Facebook post revealing the heartbreaking fact. In their estrangement, his phrases struck a nerve with the general public who had continually believed Doris to be a loving, family-orientated woman. To all the ones who've asked, I received the news of my grandmum's passing. Like maximum of you on social media, I was now not approved to look my grandmother for 14 years. Way to her supervisor Bob Bashara, who also dealt with her estate and controlled get right of entry to her lifestyles. There is a lot greater to the tale, however. It's a heartbreaking reality. I ought to stay with the revelation taken aback. Doris Day's longtime fanatics How could a female recognized for her warm temperature and generosity be saved far away from her very own grandson? And why had nobody spoken up about it earlier than Bashara for his component denied any wrongdoing? He claimed that more than one attempts had been made to reconnect Ryan and Doris, but that Ryan had declined. He pointed to a past statement on Ryan's internet site in which he had as soon as requested people now not to touch him. Approximately Hollywood Orhai's famous grandmother. However, many had been skeptical. Some consider that Doris recognized for her deep-seated desire for privateness, may also have simply desired to retreat from the world. Others, however, suspected that those around her had taken benefit of her trust, controlling her interactions and making sure that handiest to pick few had it right of entry to her, no matter where the reality lies. One fact stays: Doris, day one, among the maximum liked icons in American records, spent the ultimate years of her life without ever seeing her simplest grandson. And while she was gone, Ryan became left with not anything. However, unanswered questions and a deep feel of loss. At 41, Doris Day's grandson admits what all of us suspected, that his grandmother's later years had been not as non-violent as they appeared for years. The world considered Doris as the embodiment of happiness, a celebrity whose sunny disposition and heartfelt performances brought joy to millions. But the painful truth of her final years, one of isolation-controlled, get right of entry to and unanswered questions, has left a lingering experience of thriller after her passing. Ryan Melcher continued to replicate at the years he misplaced with his grandmother. He regularly wondered if she had ever wondered why he stopped touring. Had she certainly been stored in the darkish, or had she truly chosen to let cross of these family ties a few like Doris's? Longtime publicist Charlie Cullen Walters argued that Ryan's version of occasions is not the complete